This video was originally recorded spring 2021 from the home of Robert and Nena Thurman. To learn more about the Bob Thurman podcast, please visit bobthurman.com.
Who is that you have behind you there? Is it?
It's a yum yab.
A yum yab, really? Oh, how cool.
With white Tara and Amitayas.
That's very cool.
It's a Kensei Wangpo terma.
I see. The only ones that I know where they have a lot of yum yab paintings are Kalachakra speech mandala.
Oh, really?
You notice that?
And
my late friend, who used to be a painter and a great artist, who died, unfortunately, too soon, he was so mad with his fellow Namgyal monks because when they painted all the deities on the chapel in Dharamsala there, on the wall, they have a special Kalachakra wall. But when they had the Yum Yap, they didn't realize that the little guy was the Yap. So they put this side breast, that you see, and kind of painting on the wrong person. He was so mad, he made them change it. And say, what do you mean? How can the little guy be the male? Yeah, sorry, that's the case. What happened?
Once in a million times.
Right? You look so well. You look really happy, I think. Now, do you spend some winter time away from Atari Mandala?
Well, yeah. What happened is I had a sort of genetic heart situation.
Oh, no.
I was always told I had a heart murmur, but I was always told lots of people have heart murmurs. But then pretty much as soon as I turned 70, like on my birthday,
really?
it started acting up. Because of the altitude. And so I came down here to Encinitas, where I am.
I see.
To see a doctor, a cardiologist, and I realized I felt a lot better at this.
I see. But you're only there about, 4,000 feet?
Now? No, it's 8,000.
Oh, 8,000, I see. Yeah, that's a bit of altitude. But Manali is about the same. So you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived at high altitudes and of course been in Tibet and so on, but it just, things change when you get older.
I see. You feel you look really well. You don't look like you have any kind of a murmur. I don't like doctors. They always say you have something, gives them something to do, and I don't believe in them. I don't. When my father died of a heart attack at a young age, when I reached that age in my 50s, I had pains, and I went to one. Nina forced me to go to one, and then he couldn't find anything. But he was very frustrated. He made me do all kind of tests and everything, and gave me things. He said, well, maybe I'd had one and hadn't noticed it. But I didn't have one. Geshe Wangyal told me that I would break the pattern of my lineage, and I wouldn't have one. Because Dharma had made me too jolly, as he said. But the males in my lineage were more angersome and nervous, he said. But you're now too jolly because of the Dharma. That's what he said. He said, so you won't, but actually you'll gain a lot of weight and you have to be careful, he said, which I didn't believe because all my male relatives were all skinny. Anyway, that's about me. Never mind about that. So listen, so you are doing amazing things. And I really like your thing about the women in the Dharma. That story in Bali is amazing about that Austrian lady. That's incredible. It was very guts of you with someone with a concussion and not ship them out in a helicopter. And you did the great thing. That's really amazing. And you've had many experiences like that, I guess, in these last years.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I haven't visited your Atari Mandala except by photographs. But I admire it, and I was once there since you were there in the 90s, I think. I was in Pagosa area, and I think you're near there, right, somewhere.
Yeah.
But I was visiting somebody. I didn't have my own car, And I think you were maybe still camping at that time. You know, I haven't been 20 years in that area.
So we didn't have any buildings until 2004,
Yes,
2005. Yeah.
wonderful. And how do you deal with being Matsilabdan, being recognized as that? How does that did that have a big impact on you, or what happened? It's very, very plausible, I felt, from the beginning.
It's yes and no. I would say it had an impact. So it didn't happen until 2007 when I was 60.
Right.
And when it happened in Tibet, and then it happened again, I was recognized twice in 1 year independently, oddly, in Nepal.
Mm-hmm.
When it happened in Tibet, shall I tell the story of it, or
If you like,
just talk about
you
it?
don't have to, but if you like, I'd be very interested. Do you remember anything and this kind of thing? People would be so interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a hard thing for a Western person, you know, from various angles, and you're bearing it very well.
So what happened? What happened started the year before. I was in retreat, and of course, I had been teaching Chude, and you know, her biographies and Women of Wisdom came out in 1984. So you know, I was of course very involved with that. Feeding Your Demons was about to come out, but anyway, I was in retreat. It was a trauma Nakmo retreat. Practicing in the dark. I like to practice in complete darkness. And then all of a sudden I was flying and it was night, but I was flying and I came over this valley in the mountains, and I looked down and there were these beings in this valley, different colors of beings. Couldn't really see what they were, but I could see them moving and dancing. And then I sort of hovered above that. And then one of them came up, and then suddenly I was in my cabin with this being who was female and white and riding a white lion. Very, very clear. Like I could see the hair on the lion's mane, which was kind of yellowish. And then a whole process happened. She identified herself as Maji Labdran. And then she told me I needed to find her lineage and reestablish it. And that this was urgent. And so a whole process happened. She transmitted a practice to me, which I wrote down, and then eventually she integrated into me. And then she, you know, then I kind of came out of this process. And so there I was in retreat, and I had this sort of injunction to reestablish her lineage, and it was urgent. And so I almost left retreat, but then I remembered you never leave retreat, you have to wait. And so I waited. And then it ended up being the next spring that we went to Nepal and to Tibet. And we were like in Nepal, we visited where they have the 8,000 line Prajnaparamita Sutra.
Yes, that temple associated with her, that place, I mean.
Well, I mean, the Prajnaparamita Sutra is because that's the base of Chude, is Prajnaparamita.
Right.
And when we visited that place, usually it's in this gold box and they never take it out, except once every 3 years they take it out and repair it. And so they were repairing it, and we got to actually see it. It had, you know, those beautiful little paintings in Tibetan text, and we were blessed by it and so on. And so then we went to Tibet. and went to Zone Kamar, which was Machi Klapton's seat in Tibet.
Mhm.
It's about an hour by car down the valley from Samye on that same side of the river. And when we arrived there, I was with about 35 people. We arrived, we get out of the bus, and there's Lama there with, you know, the incense and the whole kind of greeting group. And he leads us into the monastery. And I thought, well, this is weird. Like, you know, why is he doing this? We're just kind of like tourists, you know? And then we get into the monastery, which, like most of them there, has been rebuilt. And he points to the throne and he said, you sit there. And I said, no, that's your seat. And he said, no, that's your seat. And it was one of those, you know, Tibetan things, you know, that goes back and forth for quite a while. Anyway, he insisted I sit there. He didn't say anything right away, but he said, you know, will you teach? And so thought about it. I thought I could teach Machik's last instructions, which is an amazing teaching, nature-born teaching. And it happened that the person that was leading our tour was Jerome Edu, who wrote Machik Lapton and the Foundations of Chude.
Right.
And he had translated this Machik's Last Instructions, that book. And so he ended up translating it back into Tibetan for this Lama. So I taught it.
And your 35 people were sitting listening to you. Right?
Yeah.
Trying to also.
And some monks in the monastery and so on. So I was teaching it in English and he was translating it into Tibetan. So that took a few days, maybe 3 days. And in between...
3 days, wow.
Yeah, it's not short. It's not like one of those 4 or 5 line like Testament type things.
I don't remember all of that, yeah.
It's really wonderful. Anyway, so during that time I was eating with him and talking to him in my kind of broken Tibetan, but, you know, good enough to communicate. He had a connection with Karmapa. He was a tulku recognized by the 16th Karmapa of the brother of Mikyo Dorje. And so we talked and, you know, went back and forth. And then on the 4th day, and it was Sagadawa, that month was that special month of the Buddha, birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana. So we were there. And then the 4th day, we went down to the river to do the trip practice. And at the end, or actually during the practice, it started raining. This storm came down the Brahmaputra River out of the mountains, and it was kind of a peaceful day. And then suddenly there was this intense storm coming down the river, and there had been a rainbow around the sun the whole day that day.
Oh, fabulous.
So this rain came, and we were doing our trip practice, and this is the chit drum,
right?
And you know, these drums should not get wet because they warp. Yes. But since we were already doing the practice, we couldn't stop. So I thought this was a really bad sign, you know, that this like pouring rain and, you know, our drums are getting wet and it's cold and windy and we're getting wet. And at the end, he came and sat right in front of me, got Jerome to come over to translate. And he said, okay, that was the final sign.
Really?
And I said, what? You know, what? And he said, you're an emanation of Machik Lapton. And I had a dream 3 days before you came that there was a white Dakini coming from the west sounding Damaru loudly. And that's why I came to greet you.
I see.
And that's why I told you had to sit on the throne. And then I listened to you teach. And then there's been all these signs with rainbows and so on. And this rain was the final sign because we've been in a 4-month drought. And the barley's not growing.
Right.
And so this broke the drought. So that turned out to be a good thing. So anyway, then he gave me the relics, her relics that they had there. And I said, these should stay here, and he said, no, I've seen so much be thrown into the river.
Yes.
By the Chinese.
That's right.
We've got to get these out of here. The future of the Dharma is in the West. It's over here. That's what he said. Several people in Tibet had told me that I'd met, at Sami Chimpuk and different places. So anyway, your question was, what effect did this have on me? My husband asked me that night after it had happened. And what I said, I remember, I said, it allows me to know what I know.
To know
what I know. There were things that I had known that I wasn't allowing myself to know. And so it kind of opened up a door where I could know those things. And they all kind of came tumbling in different ways. And then we went, after Tibet, we went to Nepal, overland, which I would not recommend.
Well, you came through Jiangmu, right, down that road.
Yeah.
Which falls down every year.
It was monsoon,
Yes.
And that was particularly that part coming out of Tibet. One of the people with me afterwards, she said, they should have said when they built that road, we tried and it didn't work. It didn't work. We can't build a road here.
It falls down every year, I think, actually.
Yeah, it's terrifying. And I had been in an accident in Bhutan about 8 years before that where I went off a cliff.
Oh, no.
Car. That's a whole other story. But anyway, so I had this kind of PTSD about those kind of roads.
I'm sure.
But anyway, we get to Nepal and we go to see Lama Wangdu, who has the Chude Monastery in Nepal. And then he also made me sit on the throne and, the whole thing. And then he said at the end, not that time, but before we left, he said, before you came, I had a dream of Machik Lapton, and she said, I'll be there in 3 days. Wow. And then you came with your crew.
Is that the same Lama Wangdu who goes to Portland?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I never met. Yeah.
Daring Wangdu.
I didn't know he had a German monastery. That's very interesting.
Yeah, he did. For a while. It closed down after the earthquake, and he's pretty much in Portland now.
I see.
But he was born in Dingri, Langkor.
I see.
Where Padampa Sanjay lived, and where much quite a bit of time. So his whole life has been devoted to Machik and the Chude. So she had appeared to him with her whole lineage in the sky, and then said, "I'm coming in 3 days." And then we had arrived. And then he said he put me in front of him we did a long Rinchen Trengwa practice with them, like 8 hours, and he sat me in front of him and he said, I saw her dissolve into you.
That's right.
So those were the two things that happened. And then in 2012, Karmapa gave me the Machik empowerment and in near Tashijong in Changchu.
Oh, you Ugyen Chenle? You mean the one in Dharamsala?
Yeah.
Yeah.
17. That was amazing, my connection with him, because I thought, I'm a 16th person, And some people feel that way, like the
I know
Tsultrim.
they do, but they didn't look at the photographs.
I know. Right.
The photographs of the 16th at that age, at the age he was, teenage, they look just exactly the same person. You don't know which one it is.
It was, I mean, as soon as I saw the picture of the 17th, I had no doubt.
Yes.
But anyway, so that was also really amazing. I had some really interesting talks with him about his connection with the Chude practice at that time. And so really what it means to me is just that I have a certain job. You know, I have this injunction, I guess you could call it, to find her lineage as much as I can and reestablish it. And that's why we also had the Chude conference in 2017, calling together all the scholars that are working on it.
Did you happen to connect to Michelle Sorensen by any chance?
Yes. Yes.
She got to your conference, or
she was there? Yes.
She was. I'm so glad. Yeah. She was a student of mine who had a deep thing about, and has a very strange. I don't know if you got to know her, but her mother and the whole story in Canada, and then her thesis was sort of, when she did her dissertation, it was sort of overthrown in a strange way because Sarah Harding suddenly produced everything, and then she had to retool and do something. It was very frustrating for her, but she's very true blue about Chude and Mathieu Labdon. She really has some kind of karma about it. She would be a big help to you if you have a relationship, I think, but I may be wrong.
She gave a talk at the conference.
Excuse me? She did give a talk. Did you like it? Was it good? Was the talk good?
Yeah. And she told this story. I don't remember if it was during the talk or when she and I met together about this kind of upset with her thesis and so on.
Yeah, we try to not let her be pet. You know, it just does happen in the Dharma world. You know, amongst the barbarians, we barbarians. And
anyway, so really, I mean, it just means kind of more work for me. But
it does, but now, and then, so you were establishing, and then Atari Mandala, you've made like a center there, and you've been teaching a lot of people effectively and writing important books. And what is it, when will you feel, do you feel satisfied that you have managed to reestablish the lineage, or do you have other goals and like a 10-year plan, or like whatever it is, you know? Like how is it going, sort of thing?
I think the process has begun. We brought a Lama from Bhutan, a really wonderful Lama, who had been in retreat for 27 years. Didn't really want to come out of retreat, but Tulku Sanak, who's his guiding teacher, told him to come. And so he came and taught Rinchen Trengwa, which is the big sort of treatise on Chude from the Karmapa lineage, coming down from Rangchen Dorje. And it's a long thing. It takes all day to do it. And we learned it, the 32 melodies. And I have some very talented students, musically talented, who can remember those melodies. And then we went to Bhutan. This is an interesting thing that's still in progress. Bhutan is, there's a place in Bhutan called Druk Zangri Kamar.
Okay.
So it's Machiksit in Bhutan. And what happened was, at the time when the Chinese were about to invade Tibet, a Bhutanese Lama was at Zangri Kamar in Tibet. And the Lama, there was a Lama there who, I think he was a Terton because of his name, Ling. There was a Lama there who had prescience and knew the Chinese were coming, and that they should leave. And he asked this Bhutanese disciple if he could ask his family, if he brought a group to Bhutan, would they take care of them, feed them? And so he wrote and heard back, and they said yes. And so they left early I think 1952 or something like that.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And they took everything, or at least a lot of things. They took a lot of relics
Wow.
from Zanri Kamar, and they walked out. I saw the Katvanga staff that the Lama used as his walking stick. Anyway, through various interdependences, they made contact with
So
me.
where is that, in Bhutan or further east, or where is that?
Further east, northeast.
I see. I haven't go much over
Pretty close to Tibet.
there.
And so the Lama, this Lama, had seen a vision of a place in the mountains that was shaped like a lotus, and that he should go to the middle of the lotus and establish
Wonderful.
a place.
Wonderful.
And so he did. And he found this ridge in the middle of the snow mountains, and he established this little gompa called Drukzangri Kamar.
That's good.
And brought with him all the melodies of from Tibet, and texts. He showed me the texts. Those ancient Tibetan texts that are made of that amazing kind of paper that isn't. It's almost like leather.
Yes, yes.
And so he's married, and his sister-in-law started having dreams about me.
Really?
Yes, and she contacted me, and she said, "I'm having dreams about you at Drukzangri Kamar, and I really think you should come."
Oh, good.
And I didn't really know if she was for real or not, and so I had a student, McAndrew Jack, who was head of the psychology department at Naropa at the time, and he was invited to Bhutan to set up a master's program in counseling, which they didn't have.
Okay.
And so I said to him, "Will you go visit this place and tell me what you think? Is it for real?"
I see.
They were building a big new monastery with all new statues and everything. And anyway, so he said, "Oh, I can't possibly. I mean, that's way out of the way." And I said, "Okay, well, if you can't, you can't." But then, you know how interdependence works. So then he's in a cafe one day, and he's meeting Sering Jamso, who's a Bhutanese tour leader, has been from the old days, and has, every time I've taken a group to Bhutan, he's been the leader of the group. And so he was in the cafe. McAndrew was meeting with him. And then this woman, Sonam Chuki, came in.
I see. Oh,
His sister-in-law.
I see, in Thimphu, or wherever he was. Yeah.
As I remember the story, they didn't plan to meet.
I see.
It just happened. And they, and McAndrew knew both of them or something like that. Or maybe they planned to meet. I don't remember. But anyway, they met.
Okay.
And then started talking. And she was saying, you really should go to Drukzangri Kamar. And then Sering was there, and he was like, "Yeah, I can get you there."
23 hours in a Jeep.
Well, I think they could fly to Bhutan.
Oh, yeah, you could fly to Bhutan, yeah. I think you can even fly to whatever that place in the east is even by now.
You can helicopter there. Well, you can fly to about, I think, 4 hours away.
Oh, that's yes, wonderful.
Eastern Bhutan, terrifying airport. Anyway,
So you didn't get there yet, though, yourself.
Well, let me tell you. So then McAndrew went, and I sent a bell and dorje with him that I asked him to buy in Thimphu. I said, "I buy a bell and dorje. I want to give that to the Lama as a tendril."
Yes.
And so he brought that, and the Lama put it under the statue of Machi Glaptran, the bell and dorje, and said, "This isn't moving until Lama Tsultrim comes here."
That's really great.
And so anyway,
when are you going to go?
so we went.
Oh, you did go. Oh, great.
Yeah, in 2017.
I see. Wonderful.
17, and with 60 people who are all Chude practitioners. I decided just to open it up and not limit the group, and anyone who wanted to come, we would make it happen. And so Tsering organized this, and we arrived there on the eve of the beginning of their annual Drupchen, which we didn't even know. And so we did the Drupchen with them.
That's fabulous.
60 Westerners with Chude drums. They couldn't believe it, that there were these Westerners who knew it. And I sat with him, you know, and I remember I was sitting on the throne next to him, and I turned to him and I said in Tibetan, I said, the melodies are so beautiful. And then he looked at me and he said, Zangri.
Is it what?
Zangri.
Oh,
Zangri. Yeah. They're the melodies from Zangri Kamar.
I see.
I was like, oh, that's true. Like they have the original melodies. And because everything was wiped out in Tibet,
sure.
That place in Bhutan is actually the main place that has the lineage.
Mm-hmm.
So we were last year going to go with people, talented people who could learn the dances and the melodies.
Wonderful.
And then COVID happened.
Right.
So the other thing that happened when we were there is the last day they did these Dakini dances around 5 different fires. Tsok, you know, the Jinsik, fire pujas.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I said to him, there should be women doing that. It was all men. And and then at the end, this amazing double rainbow formed over right at the end of this dance. It was like on time, you know. My grandson Otto was there, and he was like, Momo, there's a double rainbow. I was like, oh yeah, of course, you know.
Great.
Right on time.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and so we were also able to make a nice tendril with them and help them. We've helped them build a school there. They didn't have a school for the little kids, and we built an elder home for the older, call them Gumchen, you know, the practitioners who were in, you know, how steep it is in Bhutan, and, you know, that was hard for them to get around and so on. So we've done that, and we have a sort of relationship now with them. And so we will go. I mean, maybe even the end of this year we'll go again. And spend more time and really learn. Learn things, learn these dances, learn the melodies. And I do have people who can do that. And so that will be a big piece of getting her lineage, because
it would have women doing it here in the West.
Oh, and that was another good thing. At the end of the whole Drupchen, you know, I said, can I speak? And, you know, I asked him, can I speak? And then I said, you know, thank you. And this has really been so wonderful. And there's this tendril with Atari Mandala. But, you know, I'd really like to see women, a line of women and a line of men in the front row here.
Sure.
And I'd love to see women doing that dance. And he was like, oh no, they're too shy. And I was like, I don't think so, you know, like.
I don't think so. Bhutanese women, I don't think so.
I think they're encouraged by you, you know.
True, but they would need encouragement, but it would be the Western help.
But they did it. The next year,
I see.
They did it, and they filmed it, and they sent it to me.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know really what's happened since we've been there, you know, but when we go back, we'll see.
Do they have many nuns there? Did you ever visit in Bumtang, the Pema Choling place where all the nuns are?
Well, let me answer one question at a time. They don't have nuns there because it's a Gumchen lineage. It's not a monastic lineage.
Okay.
They're lay people, but they wear the maroon, and they use, this kind of Zen, the white
Right.
and red.
Right.
And
You could be lay women who would learn to do it then, okay.
yeah, and there was a group from Thimphu who would come for the Drupchen, and they all know it.
Mhm.
There's a big Chud movement in Bhutan from
Really?
Dorje, from Dzongtsar Khyentse's brother,
I see, I didn't know that.
Tinley Norbu Rinpoche's
Uh-huh.
son.
I
And
see.
they're have really activated the Tromanapa.
Uh-huh.
Chud. That whole lineage is really happening in Bhutan. So a lot of people know Chud, lay people. But not this one. This is the oral lineage of Machi Klap.
Okay.
They've sort of been, a little bit in a side eddy, with this big Terma tradition, which is marvelous. But it's important also that we keep the oral tradition. So anyway, that's a piece of what I'm doing. And then Anam Tupten, do you know him?
I have never met him, but I admire him and like him. We have never met.
You should invite him. I just taught a retreat with him. So
I've heard only good things about him.
So humble and beautiful.
Is he Tibetan? Where is he? What is he?
Tibetan.
Oh,
yeah, he was part of that group that Tartang Rinpoche brought over. And they sort of escaped and went to
I see.
went to Lama Tarshan's
He's in the Bay Area or something.
And then anyway, so this is just another piece about Machik's lineage and what's happening.
Well, that's important.
So Anam Tupten also has a real connection with Machik. And so he found a group of Machik teachings, oral tradition, from Eastern Tibet, in Eastern Tibet. And he has just translated them all and is coming out with a book.
Oh, great.
I think it's either Wisdom or Shambhala that's doing the book. I can't remember which. But that will be really interesting.
It would.
See, and of course, Sarah Harding's big volume from the Dhammak Zo. She translated all that. So there's that. And then we also established Atari Mandala, a very rare Terma cycle from Dokensei Yeshe Dorje that he received from Machik.
Okay.
And Padampa Sanjay. It's an entire cycle from Nundro to Yirams to Tsalung and Turksha and Togyal.
Yeah. Okay.
A complete cycle. And so we've had people in 3-year retreat doing that. And then we had some programs.
You have people on 3-year retreat doing that? We're in Colorado or where?
Did it at Atari Mandala.
I see. Oh, great.
And then we had these long-term programs, 10-year programs, where people did the curriculum of the 3-year retreat, but over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So one of them, that first group has just finished.
Oh, wow.
And there's 2 more groups coming. So we're doing that and various other translation projects, some other temas and.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so doing.
Do you ever teach in the East? Do you ever come East and teach you over here?
I used to.
Did you ever go to the Pathwork Center in the old days? In what's called the Pathwork Center? Sometimes it's near Woodstock in Phoenicia.
I never actually went there, but I knew about it when I lived there.
Right. So we have that now. It's called Menla. And we have a big hall that holds about 200-300 people, and we had the grandmothers there, and we have His Holiness went there one time, and we would love to have you come anyway anytime you want in the East. When people start moving around again, we've been closed basically for over a year.
I've heard about Menla and been invited there, but I teach usually at Kripalu, and they don't allow you to teach
Oh,
Any
sure. Well, yes. Well,
walls or-
they're a bigger place than us.
But
Yeah.
I would love to. I would accept that invitation now. I haven't been back there for a while, and I would love to come to Menla.
Yeah. Well, we're the littler, more Buddhist place. There's Omega. We're in the shadow of Omega in Kurpala,
Yeah.
and we can only hold 100 and some people.
That's a lot.
They'd have to say, if we had bigger group than that, they would have to go to the Emerson Hotel down on Route 28 or something. They overflow.
But anyway, coming to Menla, I know is somebody who I've identified as a Dorji Lopan at Atari Mandala, and a lineage holder of mine. She's going to be at Menla, rented a cabin there with Nina Rao.
Oh, that's Chandra Isen. Oh, in your lineage, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, she's
that's where she comes, right?
She's yeah.
She had a 3-year retreat at Atari Mandala or something. That's where she did it.
No, she hasn't. She's a mother, so she hasn't done that. But she could teach at Menla also.
Yeah, she does. I mean, she's talked to the people who booked those.
Yeah. So I bring that up because she's actually coming there like soon. Like
okay, they asked me to do something in their event.
She's focusing on the 21 Taras.
Yes, that's right. That's what it's about.
The Terma tradition, Longchen Ningtik, I think.
I see.
She said to me, "Oh, you first generation teachers, you took everything. There's nothing left for us to do. You did it all." And I said, "Well, nobody's really done the 21 Taras, and you should do that." And so she did. Yeah, she's doing it.
Well, I think people always think that. I remember I used to have a friend who told me that it would be boring to attain nirvana because, then it's all done and then there would be no thrill of attaining it. And I didn't quite know how to answer him. In their days, he was not really a Buddhist, that guy. He was more like a Hindu type of oriented guy and artist, but I finally did figure out how to answer him, that the bliss void indivisible is endless crescendo. It's not flat. I didn't have it at the time he made that argument to me. I was a little worried about it, but I think it's endless. It was more
about nirvana as cessation. That sounds sort of awful,
Well, yeah, that's what he thought, but cessation of suffering. They think it's all. They can't imagine. Mostly, I guess we people can't imagine cessation of suffering and still be alive.
Yeah,
still be around, and still do things. They have such an ingrained feeling, and so everyone has such a escapist mentality because of being afraid of things. Afraid of reality, actually, is what they're afraid of. And so it's very hard for them to imagine that there's some kind of state where you could remain ecstatic and then be effortlessly engaged in all sorts of blissful things for the sake of others, as you clearly are, which is wonderful. Really nice.
Yeah.
Amazing here. So you were your family. What you were your family? What did your father do? I wasn't clear about that. He was around in Boston, and so you're sort of like a Boston. You have your New Hampshire place, and you're in the lake there, and you're.
My family is interesting. Both my grandparents on my mother's side got PhDs from Harvard in philosophy.
Right. Okay.
And my grandmother was the 5th woman to get a PhD, and actually had to get men to get books out of the Harvard library because she was radical. Women weren't allowed in.
Oh, that's terrible. Your grandparents, right? That's right. You mentioned they were both professors, actually, and she became a professor at Harvard, right?
He did. She was professor at Smith and Mount Holyoke.
Oh, right. Okay.
And also at Bennington for some time in the beginning of Bennington.
Right.
But she gave me my first book on Buddhism when I was 15. She gave me, do you remember Paul Reps and Zen Telegram?
Yes, you said that in your book. You say it's about
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Zen, whatever it is, yeah. Zen riddles or whatever. I remember. I know that book. That's a nice book for that generation. They liked that. They had the Boston Museum of Fine Art and Lovejoy O'Hearn, and it was a very Boston thing, you know. I was sort of there. I was in exile from New York and Massachusetts for a long time, many years, about 20 years.
Yeah, me too. I met you in Boston, you know.
Yes. You came to Amherst when Namke Norba was there.
No, this was a long time. You probably don't even know
really?
this.
Well, when was that?
I met you in when I first came back from India in the 60s, late, and I don't know when this would have been, maybe 68 or something.
Oh, yeah, okay. When I was back to graduate school, I see.
Yes, and there was this guy, Michael something, English guy, and there was that Patricia Walden, yoga teacher. Is that her name?
Oh yeah, she did Clear Light. She had the Clear Light Society.
Yeah.
Is that the one? And she ended up doing hospice things with the dead. Yes, I think that was her.
Oh, I met her, and I met Michael Hollingshead.
Oh, really? You knew Michael Hollingshead?
Yes.
Oh, really? From Millbrook. Oh, dear.
I met him in Nepal in 1967.
I see.
And then when I came back, somehow I met him again in Boston, and he took me over to your house.
I see. Yes, I remember. I remember that, but I didn't remember that you were there.
You had just had your first baby.
Yes, we did. 1967. He was born December 11, 1967.
Okay. Yes. So you just had him. So this was maybe late 67 or early 68.
Yes. Fantastic. Oh, that goes way back. Yes, I saw that you were from the 60s, although you were much younger than me.
Yeah.
You certainly don't. When you said you were 70, when you turned 70, I was quite shocked.
I'm 73.
You don't seem that at all.
Oh.
You look a day over 56.
Oh.
Which to me is very young. You have to understand. I'm 80.
Yeah. It gets younger and younger, right?
It does. It does.
Like 80 doesn't seem that old to me.
It doesn't to me either. But when one of my friends, a lot of them are dying actually, and when they go, I feel so young. It's terrible. I do. I never would have believed it, but I do feel that way.
It is weird, that feeling. That feeling of that there's something that doesn't change. No matter how old you get, it's like there's something that doesn't change. And then I thought, well, I mean, according to the Buddha, that's not true. It's always changing.
Yes.
There isn't anything that isn't changing. But then I was thinking about that and thinking, well, that our true nature doesn't change.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what it is that feels like it's not changing. Is our
there might be two versions, I think.
Our ground of being, the unchanging.
The clear light of the void, I always say, or Alexa, I'm always thinking, because it's an infinite energy, then it doesn't do anything, because everything is already done from its perspective, although it's not a person, it's many persons. It can be many persons, it can be animals and plants and whatever. But it doesn't change in the sense that everything's already done. As far as it's concerned, and which is equivalent to being unborn and undone and uncreated.
Unborn and
right?
unseen.
But can be drawn on infinitely. So that's the unchanging, indestructible drop, right? But then there's another thing, I think, which is our ego habit, where we feel, oh, I'm the same I was when I was 15 or 12. And it's sort of like a point at the root of the visual field or something that feels like it never did change. Well, we reconstruct memories as if we were the same. I think, and that covers over the real thing.
Yeah.
In other words, which is open to being anything. I think something like that. So it's a little tricky, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting question.
It is.
It's an interesting sensation. what is this that feels like it's not changing? Is that ego? Daxin?
Oh, no, I think for some it is. For some it is. Like people who really have a problem growing old because they feel like they were just the same when they were young, but they've never touched anything like clear light. Although they have it in their heart, they have Buddha nature. The Buddhas, Dharmakaya, millions of Buddhas had in their heart, which they just, but as you said before, rightly, it enables you to know what you know. But everyone has that, yes, but they're not allowed to know that they know it because it's so covered over with the structures of they're so terrified by cultures, by unenlightened cultures, dominatrix cultures, So that's why I'm very excited about your bringing women into force finally, and I was very pleased when you said it was partnership that you wanted. Although in my house, it's pretty, the woman is the boss, actually, Scandinavian. Nena, I don't know how much you remember of Nena.
Yeah.
I consider her the boss, but she doesn't really believe that I consider that. She acts like, but I do consider that to be the case. But ultimately, I think the partnership thing is the best.
Yeah.
Like I like that Rihanna Eisler about that. I don't know where she is.
Yes.
It's quite good. I like that idea.
She was actually friends with my uncle. It's half of humanity, and it's half of humanity.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it's
so I really appreciate. I've heard you speak about this also. About the feminine and the importance of the feminine and the lack of the feminine, and it's so important that men take this up, and, as what they care about as well. It's like racism will never change unless white people take it up.
Yes, you should see the faces of a bunch of Zen men when I give a talk to them and tell them that of the two genders in the human species, the female is well advanced toward enlightenment beyond where the man is going to be able to reach as a starting point. Doesn't mean there more of them will get there or et cetera, unless they are able to. Because the fact is, they all think of enlightenment as some sort of wisdom mental thing that their brain is going to do. They think we're so smart, and all that, but actually they are much less aware of the interdependence. And that's really what it's about. By the way, that's a new thing. I mean, we can always edit if I talk too much, but I wanted you to see what you think about something I recently discovered. And that is Dzogchen translates Mahasandhi, not Mahanishpati or Mahanishpana. Like in Dzogrim, in the other unexcelled yoga tantras in the Sarma schools. Dzogrim, the Dzog there translates Nishpana or Nishpati, finish and completion. But Sandhi doesn't mean completion or perfection. Sandhi means connection, like Sandhi rules in grammar, Sandhi is the connection of night and day and the dawn or in the dusk, Sandhya, So Sandhi, it means connection. So actually, if you that term was translated before the Sarma Tantras were there, and they were using Dzogpa for that. So they thought, well, Dzogpa is like complete, and of course it's a great thing. It doesn't downgrade Dzogchen at all, but rather it saves it from the danger of escapist-minded people thinking they're just going to space out and disappear, kind of dualistically, like Vedantins or something. Because the idea is when you're Buddha, you're infinite and you're spaced out, and then space is full of other beings who are suffering, which you can't miss since you know everything. And I like to say, I like to say that Buddha must think, but it's a pure speculation, of course, I don't pretend, but he must think he's like all cooled out, he's all blissed out, and then he's capable of total empathy of infinite numbers of suffering beings, even in hells. And so he suddenly sees all these faces, and then they have an underlying, if they're not openly doing it, an underlying thing they are going, help! Help! And but the power of the bliss is so great, he can then automatically break into pieces, nirmanakaya, without any effort at all, and help each one in ways they would be able to accept. And so then we call, if we make Dzogchen, if we go back through that route and we introduce it in some context as the great connection instead of the great perfection, it might have a good thing, because I do feel a lot of the people, they just want to escape, and that seems easy. I don't have to do all those lundras. I can just get good, space out. And as Surya Das likes to say, just do deck chair yoga.
The what?
Surya Das likes the deck chair yoga, lying on the deck.
Oh, deck.
The spacing out. Yeah. Anyway, just think about it.
Yeah, I know that about. I know that about the translation of Dzogchen. Namkyn Over talked about that, about Mahasanti.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about Dzogchen and ways that it's taught. I don't know if you've ever received the Chuying Zo. Have you ever received that?
Yeah, I've looked at it, and I've had a few.
Ever had the teaching?
I'm very dense and very.
Yeah, right now we're having an online program on Atari Mandala with Azam Gyaltse Rinpoche. Do you know who he is? He's a
Which one?
Azam Gyaltse. He's head of Sachin Shedra and very close to Gyaltse Rinpoche. But youngish Tulku. And so he's teaching Chuying Zo 4 hours a week through Thurman.
That's great.
And 2 hours on Wednesday and 2 hours on Friday. And it's just like, it's so amazing. And I could connect you with that if you're interested.
Yeah, sure. What are we doing it online, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I'd love to see the link.
He'll give the.
I'm very fond nowadays of Dr. Nida. You know.
I have met him. Yeah, I invited him to teach Atari Mandala.
Actually, it's a weird thing. Every Tibetan doctor has the Yutok practice, because Yutok, the younger, made the medicine, 4 tantras, the medicine. Yeah. But Yutok was also an Ati Yoga Lama himself. I know. And so everyone is supposed to do that. And when I studied medicine in 1964 and 5, I was initiated in that. But then I was thinking, I'm doing good Samadhi and Kawan Sakra. I didn't pay that much attention to that aspect. So Nida has rekindled that for me, but in a Lama-like way.
Yeah.
But what I do precisely like about him is that although I think he has the capacity to be a bit of a Lama, he doesn't act like that. He's not frozen in that identity, because he actually has to deal with, like you remember, you write that you say people, that Austrian lady, she didn't want to get into emotions.
Yeah.
You were like, no, you have to do emotions when you're doing high Dharma, Dzogchens, whatever it is. We have to deal with the emotions because they're there. And and then it ended up, the poor thing fell off the roof and had to do that. So he, as a doctor, he meets people who have real trouble, and also Dharma people who consult him as a doctor. Mm-hmm. So that makes him a little more, he has to follow through with students and things in a way that maybe a Lama who doesn't know medicine.
Yeah, one of my students who has been studying with me since he was 14 became a Tibetan doctor and teaches.
Oh, good.
Eric Jampa, Eric Anderson. I don't know if you've ever run across him.
No, I haven't met him.
He teaches at Pure Land, and he's amazing. He's very young. Came up to me when he was 14, made his parents bring him to Atari Mandala from Durango.
Oh, really?
And came up to me and said, Taiji Delay, I'm Nyingma.
That's great. That's really good.
He had found it on the internet. He just figured out what his lineage was. Anyway,
Really? I mean, does he practice herbal medicine? I mean, does he collect herbs up in Atari Mandala or something? That's my old teacher, Yishi Dunden. You probably met him in Nepal.
Did,
He
yeah.
was my teacher, and well, I love him. He was very eccentric, but he never bothered me. And some people made bad rumors about him, I think, because I never saw any kind of anything but eccentricity. But he was the most fantastic diagnostician. I have seen amazing diagnostics from him, from pulse, and so on.
Yeah.
And he had a dream of having herbs, cultivating Tibetan herbs in a place like Atari Mandala. It was his dream, and
Yeah.
he really wanted to do that. He said, at one point he said, when he was in his 80s, he said, "Oh, you failed me. You never found me that place to grow the herbs in Colorado," he said.
Oh, well, we could.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm a poor professor. I don't have the.
We have 700
I
acres.
couldn't buy a ranch in Colorado. I'm sorry again. It wasn't true.
We also produce our own herbal things from almost every plant at Atari Mandala is medicine.
Yes, I think so. I bet it is.
And so when I was in retreat in 2001, I was sick. I went in quite sick, and I had, like lung things, and I was just exhausted from starting Atari Mandala. And then when spring came, the plants started coming up, and they started talking to me.
Oh, that's great.
Not literally talking, but they would tell me they were medicine. Certain ones, I'd look at them and they were, telling me.
Yeah, well, that huge grandmother that you mentioned, I'm sure she must have helped you also. She knows them all.
Also, yeah. But anyway, we have 21 formulas that I created over the next few years, of extracts of the herbs from Atari Mandala for all different things, including cancer.
Right.
And the cancer one is now supporting the whole thing because it works.
Really?
Yes, it's called ContraCan. But yeah,
I have a real friend who has been diagnosed with a serious cancer. You have those things?
Yes.
A very special thing. Oh, that's very interesting.
ContraCan.
How does he contact that? Did he go to the website or what? How does that?
Yep. Store.
If he's interested.
Store at taramandala.org. I'll send you the link, and I'll write down the name of it.
Oh, great.
And I can also douse for how much he should take.
Okay.
Sometimes
he's really an old friend of mine from like high school. Griffin is the name, Tom Griffin, and he's wonderful. He's like you, and like me, got reborn amongst these white people, coming from somewhere else, and trying to help out.
So let's go back to talk about feminine.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we can edit out some of this other things.
Yeah.
So yes, what you want to convey and what you're reestablishing the mandala and this greatest of women teachers of Tibet, and then making that lineage here in a time when, I don't know if you ever knew Tara Tulku, the former abbot of Utah. Well, he passed away in the 80s, and the young one got lost, like one of those things where the Chanza and the whole thing didn't work out. But he's around somewhere, but I don't have a relation. But he was really great. And he used to constantly say that it will be the women in America. When I went with him to Vipassana centers and Zen centers and Tibetan centers, and he would give talks, and he would always say, it's the women who have to take the lead here. He did.
And that, if you go pretty much to any Dharma center, it's 85% women.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's, to me, it's not about, that women are superior or something like that, but more that we do need that aspect. We need a balance in our world. Yeah. And a real balance where the voices of women are being heard equally and respected equally, mm-hmm. because women do have something different. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like with feminism or whatever, it's more like we're just as good as men, or we want to be like men. And I think that's really missing the point. I mean, yes, you want to be paid like men and you want to have, equal respect and so on. But the idea that you want to be like a man, no.
No, of course not.
We don't.
We have enough men being like men, and that's the trouble.
Yes. That is the trouble.
That really is.
And His Holiness knows that too. He said it.
Yeah, he did. And so that's why, I think that male lamas, most of them, however, I think do have a slight problem with that idea.
Yeah.
I'm afraid.
Well, look how hard it's been for the gay lamas to even get acknowledged.
Exactly.
A lot of resistance from the male sangha.
Right, absolutely.
So anyway, I think this is a very important thing for the world.
Mm-hmm.
I also had a big challenge with this because my teacher, who has since deceased, told me that I was too feminist. And
You were too feminine?
Yeah. And that, that wasn't Dzogchen and so on. And so I actually really questioned myself about that. And, this is a Lama that I really deep love and respect for. And I was like, maybe it's true, and I'm being too dualistic. And so I actually went into retreat for a year by myself in Colorado at Atari Mandala to sit with that question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wanted to do certain practices and so on, but one of the questions I was sitting with was, is it actually important to keep talking about this need for the feminine, or is that dualistic fixation? And that was 2001.
Mm-hmm.
I was in a retreat, sitting with that question, because it was really important. I really had felt that it was, mm-hmm. and I questioned it because he questioned it. And so what happened, two things happened in that retreat.
Mm-hmm.
One was Tara appeared to me
mm-hmm.
in a vision. I did 3 weeks of Tara at the beginning of the retreat, mm-hmm. which is a common way to begin. And then she actually appeared in my cabin, and I was actually crying about this relationship with my teacher and just how messed up it was and the grief of it all and everything. And at a certain point I cried out to her, mm-hmm. and she appeared.
Wonderful.
I could see her at the end of the bed, and I said, "Where have you been?" And she said, "I've been here the whole time, but you never called me."
Mm-hmm.
And it was true. I had never actually called on her.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was doing Tara practice, it was more like theoretical or something. This was like a really emotional calling. Mm-hmm. She was there. And so that was a real awakening for me. Mm-hmm. She is actually there. Mm-hmm. And 2001 was 9/11. And mm-hmm. so I was in retreat during 9/11. And David, my husband, came to my cabin and told me, he never would do that normally, but he came because it was so extreme and told me what had happened. And mm-hmm. my reaction sitting there on this mountainside in Colorado was, where are the women? Where are the women in the lives of these men that did this? Mm-hmm. Where's the feminine? What's their relationship to the feminine? Mm-hmm. And where is the feminine in the American response? Mm-hmm. And so it was lacking.
Of course.
That's what I saw. Lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Terribly lacking. And so in that moment, I recommitted to the feminine, and I decided, you know, whatever happened, I had to.
Mm-hmm.
I had to. That it wasn't like, oh, it would be nice if. I had to, for the survival of the earth and of
Yes.
humanity.
No, it's critical.
Yes. And I'm so grateful that you feel that way. And so when I came out of retreat, I did that. You know, I did that. I made a statement, you know, just to the people that came when I came out of retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I'm recommitting to this, and you know, whatever this means with this relationship. I was with Namkha Rinpoche, who I'd been with for 18 years, studying, practicing. I may have to let this go, let this relationship go. But
because the teacher's still into that. You mean he's still pushing you on that?
He was, yeah, you're too feminist. And so I decided.
You know, believe me, the Dalai Lama's people, when he said he should really return as a woman, 15th Dalai Lama, although he's not going to be in politics, right? You know, all that. And his people and his staff, and they all, no way. You know, they were all completely, a bunch of shoulders.
No.
They were really freaked out.
Anything but that. But anyway, so just to finish that story, I did recommit to it, and I thought maybe Atari Mandala would just fall apart because this was my lineage and what was going to happen. You know, lineage is everything. But what did happen was that my students all gathered and said, "We're with you."
Oh, good.
Yes. And we're going to support you. And then they gave all the money to build our amazing temple.
It's beautiful.
Dedicated to the sacred feminine.
Beautiful.
It's so beautiful. You have to see it.
I want to.
You really have to. People think, oh, I've saw pictures, and they're come and they're like, they actually start crying. But anyway, so the good thing is that 14 years later, Chude Namkha Rinpoche came to Atari Mandala. After David died, I went to see him. And anyway, I invited him and he came, and I was so nervous about what he would say and do and whatever. And he walked around, he walked around the temple, and then we kind of sat down and he looked at me and he said, "You've done a good job." And he taught and he gave empowerments, and really, he didn't usually give formal empowerments, but he did. Thurman, he said, you're really holding the Vajrayana here. Because we hold very traditional drupchans and things like that.
Yes.
And he was so respectful, and it was such a beautiful healing, and I think important example, because so many women doubt themselves and about this. And look, we have such deep respect for the lamas, such profound respect that, you don't want to ever contradict anything that they would say. And yet, this is really important for the world. It's not a matter of Buddhism or, Tibet Buddhism. It's a world problem and a world issue, because we have this amazing resource of half of humanity that's hardly being used.
Exactly. Oh, it's being terribly abused.
In leadership. And
terrible. Not just leadership, just every day around every house.
Yeah.
Abused badly. Really.
So anyway.
Did you ever read Marilyn Waring's book?
What book?
Marilyn Waring. Did you ever read her book?
What's the name of it?
She's a sociologist from New Zealand, and it's called Counting for Nothing, The Labor of Women.
No, I haven't.
A global thing. Oh, it's just
I will.
it's hard to read. It's hard to read.
I'm writing it down. But I mean, things are changing. You know, there's that whole micro financing is happening a lot through women.
That's good.
And there's some progress being made. And I think, you know, my book, this Wisdom Rising Journey into the Mandala of the Empowered Feminine, is about empowerment of women, inner, like I-N.
Empowerment, yes, good.
Empowerment of women and men in terms of the feminine. And so that outer empowerment is important, but at what are women drawing on as they are activists or as they are trying to change things or embody the feminine in various ways? What are they drawing on that can support them in that process?
Yes.
And, you know, in general, what are women drawing on spiritually? And so what I teach, this Dakini Mandala in Wisdom Rising, is a thing they can draw on, men and women. It's very powerful. The Dakinis are very powerful. And the mandala, of course, is
really wonderful. I really like it. I really like it. I'm very fond of the Naro Yogini and the Kajama.
She's wonderful. So anyway, that was my offering with Wisdom Rising, was to take something from Tibetan Buddhism and apply it to a worldwide issue, and offer this resource for inner power to feed and support.
Have you ever reached out to Christian women? You know, there's that woman who just left the Southern Baptist Convention. Do you know that story? Did you notice that in the media? Because you're not in the mountains now, you're in California. I thought you might have heard it. I was very touched by, there's a lady who was never allowed to be a minister quite by the Southern Baptist Convention, but she protested that, and she was an important writer. And of course, that's one of my 80-year-old things. I can't think of her name this minute, but I will remember it.
Yeah, I did read about that, I think, at the time. It wasn't.
And she stepped out and she resigned from being part of it. And then some of them said good riddance. And others were really upset because they thought a lot of women would follow her.
Yeah.
Of course, that's those people who are all pro-Trump, you know, and they're really ridiculous. You know, they want the Amy Comey Barrett. I mean, really crazy kind of people. Those kind of political evangelists. You know, Ralph Reed, you know, these people. So it would be really interesting to have a strong woman minister, but she would be seeing you as a Buddhist minister.
Yeah.
A leader of a community, as a strong woman. And reach out, because what does she have to look for? Where can she find resources? She can't really take evangelicals easily to the Gospel of St. Thomas or something, or Gospel of Mary Magdalene. She can't go with the, well, maybe she could touch base with Elaine Pagels. I shouldn't say that, I don't know. But, I don't know if you ever reached out to anybody of that kind. But it's a time, that would be very important, I think, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
like a woman's world religion, you representing something within the Buddhist movement. I think there are some Zen women who would also be joining.
Yeah, I'm thinking about having a conference for Western Buddhist women teachers.
Yeah, I think that's
in all traditions.
Yeah.
I was talking to Lama Willa. Do you know Lama Willa?
Yeah, kind of. I do sort of know them, but they don't necessarily invite men to their conferences.
No.
Even if they did, you have to understand, for 50 years I've been working 5 jobs or something.
Yeah. But anyway, that's something that she just came here to visit me, and we talked about doing something like that. But it would be really interesting to talk to other women who have battled with the patriarchy.
Yeah.
And it takes so much out of you and so much courage,
Yeah.
and you're so alone when it's happening. I didn't have anybody.
Even, you did mention in your book, you seem to you seem to be accepting the Western religion scholars' historiography that Tantra is just some late thing in India rather than comes from Buddha, as Tibetans would say, and from Nagarjuna, and so it's and since Tantra is where you get to really compassion side of things, where a great connection level instead of great perfection heading off the planet, but great connection as changing, making Buddhaverse out of the planet. And my job was, when I was active, but now that I'm retired, even more, overthrowing all that historicity where they try to put, that's part of their whole thing of putting everybody in a bag. And Buddhism, all the religions, they're putting the women down, they're all just equally chauvinistic and so on. I don't think so. I had one graduate student who wrote a 1,300-page monograph, which ruined all my colleagues' willingness to read my graduate student's papers for his dissertation, for his defense. But in which he of course, he goes past Buddha because he's sort of Brahminically oriented, that one. But he goes all the way back into the Brahmanas and the Aranyakas and the Vedas. And he finds, if he could, he would reach to Harappa.
What did he find?
Matrilineal. Jim Hartzell is his name. And he's a weird genius type of character. But he passed his dissertation anyway. But I mean, he found in the Upanishads and all kinds of Brahminical things, Tantra, the idea of the connection and dealing with the female and
Do you know this happened a few years ago, like now in the early 2000s, I think. And I was really interested at the time, but I haven't heard anything more about it, that they found a pillar, top of a pillar in India somewhere, that was dated to around 300, that said Dakini Yana.
Really? Oh, I didn't remember that one.
Yes.
But I'm sure that's true. I have no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an Ashokan. That wouldn't be a Ashokan pillar.
It was archaeological, and I remember talking to Anne Klein about it. I said, "Wow, this is amazing! It's so early, right. Much earlier than they date Tantra usually." And she said, "Yeah, well, now they'll study it, and we'll hear more about it." But I haven't heard anything.
I know, and those things tend to get a little bit lost, like Dead Sea Scrolls, because the men are in charge. The Maria Jimbuta story, that story.
Yes.
How she was the toast of France and Paris and all of Europe when she was studying the Kurgan male conquering people coming into Europe, 5,000 BCE and so on. And then she dug deeper and found the matrilineal Danube culture, goddess culture. And then they busted her. She had to go to LA.
Yes.
She had to, and they still pretend she's like just marginal, and they don't believe it.
That's really marginalized all of her really obvious research. I read all that and when I was living in New York. I know Joan Sutherland was her assistant, who's a Zen teacher at the time. And it's my little dog. We should probably wind up, right?
What's that?
We should probably wind up.
Yes. I think people probably want you, and we won't use all of this because we had other things that are like that, but we'll have to get it edited. But I'm so happy to just touch base with you and reconnect with you. Really, I am.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful about it and happy about it. Look forward to seeing you out there and maybe having you visit Menla. And work on something this October with the Lions, or we'll do something online, I hope, Tibet House. But it's really been a joy to see you, and it's a blessing, actually. I feel blessed to have talked to you. I'm so well and happy, and don't listen to people frighten you about your heart, please. Don't stick things in there and do things like that. Everybody has murmurs and this and that, like some yogis stop their hearts for like half an hour while they go off in the astral body and whatever. Just consult with Tara about your heart.
So I'm going to try to come to Menla. If somebody sends me an invitation, I would try to do that when I start traveling again.
Sure. Sure. Meanwhile, maybe online we'll try to we'll talk to Mel, and we haven't really started working on it yet the second Dalai Lama summit, and I'd like you to be a central thing about how connecting the lineage fits with, making American, modern society more compassionate, as how that connects, and how the feminist thing is for real here, and it has to be, I really think that's important, and I think you are the authoritative spokesperson, and you even took you 1 year's retreat to decide not to listen to being put in place. And you're going to be acting like us men, be more like men, sort of routine.
When I tell this story in retrospect, it seems obvious I should stick with the feminine, but I think it's really important to understand how hard this is for a woman, and how you feel so alone. And, I was supported by Jack Kornfield and Norman Fisher and people like that, and Joanna Macy. And I wasn't completely alone, but within the Tibetan tradition, I felt pretty alone and very criticized. And so I just want to say that although these things are kind of obvious, like, of course you had to stick with that, but it's not, of course. And we really need support. And I so much appreciate your support, and that you actually think this is important. And we need more people like you.
Well, men are hard to tame, They grow up with Rambo movies and things.
Yeah.
So I try. I don't claim to have really achieved fully, but somehow old age helps a little bit, maybe also. But
and your wife.
She's my guru, absolutely. She's definitely my third guru. I know I salute her along with His Holiness and Geshe Bongyal. They're my three major gurus. Taratoku in between there, and Serkon Rinpoche. But they're all my main teachers. But she is equal to any of the lamas as far as what I've learned. I say that.
Yeah.
I say that. I hope it doesn't upset His Holiness. Like I know I'm nervous when I say that, because if it wouldn't upset him, I'm sure, but then people might start talking in the court. He's going crazy. He's like comparing his wife to you, and you have to worry about it. Then cut off the access. So always a danger in dealing with a court situation. The courtiers.
Yeah.
So listen, okay, I let you go. Thank you so much, and air hug, and really lots of love to you, and all the best, and good luck. Okay.
Thank you.
And let me know. Actually, if you send me a snail mail address, I might send you. Did you see our Tara Tantra book?
No.
In our job of trying to translate the tenure, this is not actually tenure, but we do. It's a very wonderful job, but she's not a student of mine. She was a student of Professor Wayman, my predecessor. But we retrieved her dissertation, and then she made it into a book. So thank you so much, and have a great day. And take care of yourselves, okay? Lots of love.
You too.
Okay, bye.
This video was brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership community and viewers like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House Menla membership, please visit our websites at tibethouse.us and menla.org.